And so we end today with mail time. We are 7 episodes into our podcast, my friend, and we have encouraged our listeners to reach out with their feedback, their comments, their questions, and folks are starting to do that.
Yay!
You can get in touch with us a couple of ways. You can head on over to the BossBetter Now Facebook page, where you can comment on episodes, on clips. You can ask questions. You can also do that at the podcast webpage, bossbetternowpodcast.com. There is a comments section under every episode. We'd love to hear from you. If you don't want to post your questions or comments publicly, well, then you can email us at bossbetternow@gmail.com. So I have a couple of comments and questions for us today, Alyssa.
Okay.
First, Liz in Sewickley, Pennsylvania, writes to tell us that our show is her first ever podcast, and she is hooked. She says that she leaves our show feeling understood, recognized, and supported.
Oh, that's like my life's work. Yes. Thank you, Liz. Awesome.
Renee from Tampa, Florida, wrote in to say that she thinks our show, this is all caps, so well done. She wanted to tell me, Joe, you picked a great co-host. And she has a question.
Ooh, okay.
She says, your show is so well done. How much pre-scripting and editing do you do? You want to talk about that?
Sure. So I think maybe I spoke about this a little bit in that we don't do scripts. You provide this wonderful, awesome run sheet to me, like maybe a day or two in advance. And it just kind of says, here's like the bullet points of what we think we're going to talk about during this particular episode, right? And then there's like the standardized, like when we're going to talk about our intro, that might be written out. But all the rest, that is unscripted, folks. You're just getting it real. And Joe has such an ability to bring out the best in everyone, and I just get to be a part of that. And I fully trust that whatever comes from our conversations, while I am, yes, intensely vulnerable, sitting here with unscripted, because my type A wants to go, oh my gosh, I want to control every single word that comes out of my mouth. I trust you, and I trust our listeners that it has the intentions that we desire it to have, and it will have the purpose and the meaning come through, regardless if I get it wrong sometimes and just how I say it.
I think conversation of people who have knowledge, expertise, and ideas alongside a deep caring for seeing other people succeed is a formula for some good things to happen. And so when we decided to do this podcast, as we've talked about, it was born out of just some of the naturally occurring conversations that you and I would have that were a mix of, I'd like to think, rich, but also a lot of fun. And so here we are. So to your question, Renee, we don't really script anything other than segment 1's topic is this, camaraderie question of the week is this, third segment is going to be this. Let's see what happens. I hit record at the beginning, and I hit record when we're done, and we send it off to the podcast engineers, and they make sure you don't hear like humming in the background and echoes and whatnot. And that's it. That's how it's done. So thank you for the question. I got 2 more here for us.
Okay.
Jameis writes from Denver, Colorado, to tell us that he really likes the music for the camaraderie question of the week. It's a little cartoonish, isn't it?
That's all of you, my friend. You are a creative genius.
Is that an oboe or bassoon?
I don't know what
it's oboe or bassoon. I get them. I have a degree in music, but it was voice. So what do I know about instruments? But that's a xylophone, I believe. And that's a trumpet with the muffle thing on it. The term just went right out of my head. Well, that's for you, Jameis. One more run through of our music. Thanks for telling us how much you like it. And then lastly, Oh no, I lied. I have two more. Sorry, I have a question that I want us to spend just a few minutes talking about. But
Okay.
I also needed to share this. I think you'll find this really entertaining. Rich in Ohio listened to our conversation in episode 4 about my resemblance or not to Hugh Jackman, and he sent this along. He says, Joe, for the record, in the comics, Wolverine is 5'3". So at 5'8.5", you are actually closer to being Wolverine than 6'1" Hugh Jackman. And that makes Rich from Ohio my favorite listener. Thanks for that, Rich.
Good job, Rich. Good job.
All right, we're going to end on a question from Nancy in Montana, and I want to chat about this question for a few minutes because it's such a great question and something that I think a lot of folks struggle with. Here's her question. As a leader, how can I help my overworked, stressed out staff who have been worn down by rude customers? I mean, that's something that folks deal with a lot, but I think we're living in an age right now in recent months where a lot of the folks we encounter in the workplace who are customers maybe are not having their best day. And that really can take a toll. And so Nancy wants to know how she can help her overworked, stressed out staff deal better by being worn down by rude customers. Where do you want to start for her?
This is similar to a question that I ask at the beginning of every coaching engagement that I embark on with a new client. And that is, how do you experience support? As your boss, how am I going to translate that? As your boss, how do I know that you know I care about you? And so my first thing to Nancy is, if you don't know the answer to that, individualized to those team members, ask. And you can start with that question. How do you experience support? Make a note, write it down, do it. Make them feel that support in the way that translates to real care for them.
And I like asking folks, I've done a lot of workshops on dealing with difficult people in the workplace. And sometimes those are difficult customers. Sometimes those are difficult coworkers. And one of the questions I always begin with is, how do you know when you're flustered? Flustered is a wonderful word, isn't it? Right? Not annoyed, not challenged, but flustered. And what are the signs and symptoms? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What's happening in your body? And we have this really great dialogue. I'll never forget, I was in a workshop once and a woman raised her hand and said, everybody in the office knows I'm done when I take off my hair. But when we
I'm not even in her office and I feel that.
I know, but she's clear on it. And I think when we ask people to identify when they're noticing that they're worn down, then we can ask the kind of question that you threw out, which is, well, then what do you need, right? What do you need to experience in that moment to be supported? Maybe it's me as a leader just giving you some time and space to recharge, finding a way to move you away from the environment, maybe where you're on the front lines or being worn down, if that's possible. And so I think that's a big part of it is, when I was a kid growing up, I was a big fan of professional wrestling, the fake stuff that you watch on TV. And, I'm a child of the 80s, so it was Hulk Hogan and Macho Man and all that. And if you ever watched tag team wrestling, it's the same script every time, right? There's one guy in the ring who's getting his butt kicked and he's like dragging himself over to the corner and he's reaching and he's waiting and his hand's shaking and he's trying to tag in his partner and then boom, he tags in his partner and his partner comes in like a house of fire, right? We need to know who our partners are in the workplace so that when we're down on the mat, we could tag them in and they could come in like a house of fire. So what's your signal in the workplace? What are you going to, Carol Burnett used to tug on her ear on TV to send a signal to her grandkids or a family that she loved them and go to bed. But what's your signal in the workplace where you're going to tag in a teammate to say, okay, I get it. You're down on the mat. You need me to come in like a house of fire. Here I am.
These metaphors, again, folks, he started off on fire. He's ending it on fire as well. Aren't we just the greatest beneficiaries of it today?
And Nancy, here's the other thing to remember, my friend. You've got to make your employees the hero of the story. You've got to give them capes. And what I mean by that is when you're dealing with rude customers, it's really easy to focus on the horrible behavior and the awful ways they make you feel. And when we do that, all of our mindset and all of the dialogue, both internally and around us, is negative. But if you can find a way to flip the script and to tell them why they're the hero in the moment with the rude customer, you move away from that negative mentality and into a better headspace. And what I mean by that is you ask the employee, you know what? Yeah, you're right. That was a horrible interaction. That person had no right to talk to you that way. But boy, I feel bad for whatever it is that they're going through or are dealing with that led them to be in such a place where they talked to you that way. And in the moment, you had an opportunity to be a hero, to help them solve their problem. You did not give them the power to negatively influence your quality of service delivery. No matter how they showed up, it didn't change how you showed up. And that makes you a hero in my book. And when we can write that script for folks and we can say that out loud and plant those seeds in people's heads over and over again, they become a little bit more resilient in the face of rude people. All right. That ends our mail time segment. As we said, folks, please feel free to keep in touch with us. Email us at bossbetternow@gmail.com. And that is our show. Thank you so much for listening, folks. We're so glad to have you hanging out with us today. We hope to see you again real soon.